Hello, this is Elliot at the Audible Local Ledger. Hopefully, everybody had or is having a good holiday season. I'm coming to you with the Cape Cod Chronicle on Thursday, December 26th. Page 1 has a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Claus with an infant, and so we'll be starting today with page 2 with our spotlight. Rich Waldo has built a career in public works. By Ryan Bray. Rich Waldo remembers working construction shortly after graduating high school and having what he called a revelation. I said, "You know what? My body's not going to be able to do this forever," said Waldo, who started in March as Public Works Director for the town of Orleans. "I was young at the time, and I wanted a little bit more for myself." Waldo's journey from a kid growing up in central Massachusetts into the world of engineering and public works on the Cape has hardly been straight. But with more than 20 years of experience as an engineer in both the private and public sectors under his belt, he's built a solid reputation for himself on the lower and outer Cape. Realizing he was good with numbers and just kind of fixing things and putting pieces together, Waldo studied engineering at Concordia University in Montreal. One summer while working on a home in Truro, he also started working for an engineering firm in Provincetown. That's where I first really started to work in the engineering field, he said. I would do structural reviews for them. I would do AutoCAD drawings, survey drawings for them, regulatory reviews. The firm continued to give him work when he returned to school, and when he graduated in 2005, he was offered a job. He relocated to the Cape, where he's lived ever since. "I was not a frequent visitor to the Cape, surprisingly," Waldo recalled, growing up in a small town of Northborough. "I was one of those Massachusetts folks that tended to go north. I went to New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine." After several years working in the private sector, Waldo shifted gears to the public arena in 2012. He started to work as Assistant Director of Public Works in Provincetown. Within 14 months, he was promoted to the role of Public Works Director. In a true case of trial by fire, Waldo quickly found himself immersed in a number of major initiatives, he said. "As soon as I stepped in, it was go. We had a new water treatment plant. We had sewer ongoing. We were finishing up phase 2 of the sewer into phase 3 of the sewer. It was just a major introduction into public works. At the same time, the town was also initiating a major downtown road reconstruction project," he added. But his 11 years in Provincetown running point on public works, from managing staff and projects to preparing budgets, ultimately prepared him for the biggest challenge of his professional career. In 2022, he was hired as town administrator in Wellfleet. Having just received his master's degree in public administration, he said the Wellfleet job was the right opportunity. "The job opportunity was in close proximity to where I live, where I'm raising my family." He said, "You don't know how often these opportunities will come along to get to the next step." Waldo said he constantly pushes himself to take on new challenges, but the Wellfleet job proved difficult, especially for someone new to the world of town management. The town was in the midst of financial issues and had gone through a number of town administrators in previous years. All of those problems awaited Waldo upon his arrival. Despite the challenges, Waldo said he's proud of the things he was able to accomplish as administrator, from helping the town certify its free cash for the first time in 4 years, to improving the town's finances and hiring and retaining new staffers. "At the end of the day, I can say after 18 months that we turned Wellfleet around in a better direction than I received it," he said. When Orleans Public Works Director Tom Daly departed his post after 10 years in November 2023, town manager Kim Newman set her sights on Waldo to succeed him. For Waldo, it was a welcome return to the public works area. arena. He said his time in Provincetown and Wellfleet served to give him a broader, more comprehensive look into the gears of town government, and that the experience has served him well so far in Orleans. That confidence to know whatever I face in this position, I've been through it or know I'll be able to find my way through it, it gives me a sense of ease, he said. I know I can do my job, and I know I can do my job really well for the town of Orleans, and that's a nice feeling. Waldo's hire has been one of the many in town since Newman's arrival in July 2023. He credits the town manager with recruiting and building a solid staff of directors and department heads that work well together as a team. The same goes for his team in public works, he said. I truly appreciate the opportunity to work in Orleans, he said. I find this to be a great community, and I'm fortunate enough to come into a great group of staff that works in the department as well as the town. I'm thrilled about this opportunity. I'm thrilled to be here. Orleans is currently in the midst of construction of its second phase of sewering in the area of Meeting House Pond, and planning is well underway for the phase 3 in the areas of Pilgrim Lake, Crystal Lake, Aries Pond, and Lonnie's Pond. Overall, the town is looking at 16 phases of work through the year 2067. With sewering, which is being done in an effort to help keep nitrogen and other pollutants out of the town waterways, comes disruption, Waldo cautioned. There's no way to shape it other than say this is going to be a disruptive project, he said. Wherever we are, whatever phase we're in, it's going to be disruptive. Our goal is that we make sure that all the disruption is worth it in the end. Waldo is also overseeing the reconstruction of the commercial wharf at Rock Harbor, which voters at town meeting in May authorized funding through a $9 million proposition, 2.5 for override. A $1 million grant recently awarded the town through the Massachusetts Seaport Economic Council will chip into that cost. And the town is also hoping for additional grants through the State Office of Coastal Zone Management. The project is expected to be complete in April or May. I find that part of the puzzle of a successful project is not just the construction end of it, but funding it, he said. Funding effectively and to the benefit of the taxpayers. That's a piece I like. Waldo and his partner Sadie live in Truro with their 2 children, Juniper, 5, and Henry, 3. Sadie is a veterinarian, and the family owns and operates a veterinary practice in Provincetown. I have no regrets along the way, Waldo said, looking back at his personal professional journey to date. I've had some good days and some bad days, but I'm just proud to say I've learned from all my experiences and have been able to make better decisions moving forward. Okay, our latest article about the family pantry. Helping neighbors enters the final stretch, help to close the funding gap by New Year's, by Alan Pollock. By all accounts, 2025 promises to be a big year for the family pantry of Cape Cod. By the end of 2024, the organization expects to have provided a record 165,000 bags of groceries to its clients, over 4 million pounds of food. Never mind the tons of clothing it will have distributed. There's every indication that 2025 will see an even stronger demand. Family Pantry Executive Director Christine Menard said it's time for people to reimagine their idea of what a typical pantry client is like. For everyone, grocery bills remain incredibly expensive, prompting more and more people to turn to food pantries for extra support. Every week, the organization gives help to people who've never before needed to seek charitable help to feed their families, Menard said. Clothing is also increasingly expensive. Volunteers from the family pantry receive and sort tons of donated clothing each year, and items, particularly warm clothing like sweaters, fly off the racks almost as quickly as they're made available to clients. Families who have the means to buy new clothing are increasingly turning to thrift shops like the pantry's Second Glance to save money on quality clothes. The bottom line, Menard said, is that the pantry has become a resource for ordinary working people on Cape Cod, not just folks who've fallen on hard times. It comes down to the high cost of living in Barnstable County, where housing is scarce and prohibitively expensive. There are still many jobs available, but hourly wages aren't keeping pace with expenses. You know, when your average rent is $2,500 to $2,800 a month, it kind of knocks that hourly wage right down. I don't see it ever changing between the seasonality of this place and the straight cost of living, Menard said. Study shows that a person needs to earn $135,000 a year in order to live on Cape Cod. Our families don't have jobs that provide $135,000 a year. Our families don't have jobs that so I don't think the need is ever going to go away. It might ebb and flow, but the pantry unfortunately will have to be here forever, she said. Still, thanks to its faithful donors, prudent financial practices, and hundreds of volunteers, the family pantry is up to the challenge, Menard said. Like most charitable organizations, the pantry relies heavily on year-end giving during the holiday season to provide the funds to operate during the lean months that follow, making the Chronicle's annual Helping Neighbors drive a key financial boost. This is the first year we've really seen donations kind of slow down a little bit, Menard said. A lot of money from the COVID era has very much dried up from the state and federal funds, she said, and charitable giving was off in 2024. But with the pandemic benefits now ended, demand on the pantry has increased again, and it will be on an upward trajectory in 2025. Thanks to generous donors, all contributions up to the $115,000 goal will be matched dollar for dollar, provided that the contributions are made by New Year's Eve when the campaign ends. Those matching gifts are a great incentive, and it would be a shame to leave them off the table, Menard said. First Night Chatham Gears Up for New Year's Eve by Alan Pollock. Following 11 months of planning, organizers of the Chatham's family-friendly New Year's Eve party are putting the finishing touches on the 2024-25 edition of First Night Chatham. Under the theme Celebrate Together, the event will offer around 100 different activities and performances in more than 18 venues around town between 1 p.m. and 10 p.m. People will gather for the town photo at the lighthouse at noon, and registration begins at 2 p.m. for the Carnival Caper Road Race, which steps off the front of the Squire at 3 p.m. Expect traffic delays related to both events. First night buttons are available for $30 for adults, $5 for children ages 3 to 11, and can be purchased online or at First Night headquarters, starting the day after Christmas. Buttons are needed for most indoor events, which happen at churches, schools, and public spaces around the downtown area. The full updated schedule of events is online. There are plenty of fun things for families to do, even without a first night button, most notably at the Noise Parade. A feature of all first night celebrations, the Noise Parade invites people to march together playing musical instruments, blowing foghorns, banging pots and pans, or finding other ways to create a ruckus. Chatham's parade begins at the corner of Cross Street and Main Street at 6 p.m. and marches its way to Veterans Fields for the fireworks display around 6:30 p.m. Parking will be scarce downtown, so organizers encourage first night revelers to use the free shuttle bus that runs from noon to 10:30 p.m. between Monomoy Middle School on Crowell Road and the Rotary with stops in between. Traditionally, except in cases of dangerous weather, first night is held rain or shine, and visitors are encouraged to dress in layers and bring flashlights. First night organizers saying they can always use additional help on the day of the event. We're in particular need of folks to help out at the community center, the elementary school, and town hall, volunteer Peter Girl said. Workers help usher guests in and out of performance venues for 1 or 2 shifts in between 1 and 6 p.m. People are interested in volunteering are asked to email Sally Stratman. Replica of Exchange Building proposed for West Harwich by William Galvin. If developer John Carey gets town support, a replica of the Exchange Building, once the cornerstone of Harwich Center, could be built on the corner of Route 28 and Depot Street in West Harwich. Carey is in the process of redeveloping the West Harwich Schoolhouse into apartments. He purchased the property at 52 Route 28, and his fiancée, Piper Connolly, acquired the adjacent lot at 48 Route 28. Carey was before the planning board on December 17th, discussing alternatives for development of the property, including the idea of more housing and a replica of the Exchange building. What I'm proposing tonight and could resurrect West Haven and establish a new village center, where housing and commerce will replace abandoned buildings, Carey told the planning board. A place where you meet with friends, a village that becomes a place you drive to, not drive through. The stretch of Route 28, known as Captain's Row, running from the Herring River to the Dennis town line, is experiencing a transformation with the restoration. Projects now underway or in the planning stages include Carey's renovation of the West Harwich Schoolhouse into 10 apartments. The Davenport Realty Trust proposed to add 10 to 13 apartments at the Baptist Church site, and now Carey's proposal to place 38 to 40 housing units and commercial space at the Captain George Winchell Baker property at the corner of Depot Street and Route 28. Planning Board Chair J. Duncan Berry also updated the board on other changes coming along that stretch of Route 28. He said the Massachusetts Department of Transportation has a roadway improvement project scheduled to start within a year that will include additional amenities including brick sidewalls, bike lanes, and historic lighting. According to Berry, Mass DOT has agreed that the sidewalks throughout the 1.1-mile stretch will be brick. Initially, the plan was for 25% of the sidewalk to be brick. The initial plan also called for 50% of the area to have historic lighting, but the federal government has provided funds for historic lighting throughout the stretch, said Berry. This type of thing that planners could be looking at in a very positive way, sidewalks and bike lanes, Berry said. It's going to be a very different place. I'd like you to envision a revitalized West Harwich, one that honors a legacy to our past while embracing the challenges of our future, said Carey. A place where our oldest buildings will stand as symbols of our resilience, and the newest structures are built as a testament to our ambitions. Carey put 2 proposals before the planning board last week. Both called for the relocation of the Captain Baker House, built circa 1870, to the rear of the lot. Carey said he plans to restore the historic structure as a 2-family dwelling. The Historic District and Historical Commission approved the relocation of the historical structure on December 18th. As for development of the site, Carey presented one scenario with 4 additional structures with a total of 38 apartments. One of the structures is in front of the lot, located in the Commercial Highway District, which would have a commercial use, possibly a cafe, sandwich shop, taco counter, or a small restaurant, he said. The 3 apartment buildings would each contain 12 units. There would be a 58-space parking lot to the rear of the west side of the lot. Carey said the parking lot would not be seen from Route 28 or Depot Street. He's calling the project West Harwich Square. The other option would provide an exact replica of the Exchange building, a 58 by 100-foot 4-story structure similar to the dimensions of the historic structure that served as the cornerstone of Harwich Center for more than a century, until its demolition in 1964. A variance would be needed from the height limits that only allow 2.5-story structures in that area. The trade-off is more height for fewer buildings, he said. The proposal would also add a 2.5-story structure to the west side of the Exchange building. Carey had questions about zoning and how the West Harwich District of Critical Planning Concern, DCPC, enactment will impact the project. He has said it's begun working with the Cape Cod Commission on the DCPC issues, and added that while under zoning a height variance appears necessary, he was not sure about DCPC provisions. Planning Board member Mary Maslowski said she thought the Planning Board may have the ability to issue waivers under the DCPC provisions. Carey said under both proposals, parking would be shielded from the roadway, and the plan would be to extend a brick sidewalk and historic lighting down Depot Street to the end of the property, and possibly add a couple of pickup, drop-off street-based parking spots along the street. The architecture would match that of the surrounding structures, such as the historic schoolhouse, Baptist church, and Baker House, all built in the 1870s and 1880s, he added. Board members wanted to know if the entire complex would meet affordable housing guidelines. Carey said 12 of the units would meet affordable housing standards, but all 38 to 40 units would be added to the Commonwealth subsidized housing inventory. Board members had questions about the site and building coverage meeting requirements. Carey said he would make adjustments as necessary to meet requirements. Select Board Trust hears presentation on affordable housing project by Tim Wood. Preliminary designs for affordable housing at 1533 Main Street, the former Buckley property, are being vetted by town boards in advance of developer Penrose filing a comprehensive permit application with the Zoning Board of Appeals. Within the next few weeks, Penrose officials are expected to visit the Planning Board and Historic Business District Commission. Last week, members of the Historical Commission, Select Board, and Affordable Housing Trust Board heard a rundown of the current plans for the 48-unit development. While the meetings are required, the informal presentations provide an opportunity for officials to comment before the plans are finalized for the comprehensive permit application. Housing and Sustainability Director Gloria McPherson wrote in a memo. Under Chapter 40B, the Zoning Board is empowered to grant a comprehensive permit for projects with a minimum of 25% of the units designated as affordable. The Board's Penrose is moving with what would have reviewed the project had it not been involved affordable units. The groups will also be able to comment during the comprehensive permit process, she wrote. Penrose is also developing 40 units of affordable housing on town property off Meeting House Road and will be meeting with the same boards and commissions about the project when it's further along. Penrose activities submitting separate comprehensive permit applications for each project, starting with the 1533 Main Street development in January and Meeting House Road project in February. There are 4 buildings currently on the 1533 Main Street property: the main house, built in 1940, and 3 small cottages. All will be torn down to make way for the development, said Penrose Senior Development Rio Sacchetti. The buildings fall under the jurisdiction of the Historic Business District Commission, but at a presentation to the Historical Commission on December 17, members asked that efforts be made to either move or salvage material from the structures. Sacchetti said the buildings are not in very good condition, but agreed to look into the request. Because the project will seek federal and state tax credits, it must be reviewed by the Massachusetts Historical Commission, which recommends that it be reviewed by local historical boards. Later that day, Sacchetti and Paul Adaman, principal project architect of Union Studios, met with the Select Board and Affordable Housing Trust Board. We want to get as much input to further along our design before we come up with a more formal set of plans to submit for the comprehensive permits, Sacchetti said. We want to get as much input before it hits the public hearing process. It's better to work things out prior to that. Some modifications have been made to the plans that were initially presented as part of the initial proposal. The project will include 9 residential buildings and a community center. Additional parking has been added and an area identified where 6 spots could be added in the future if needed, Adaman said. Buildings were repositioned so that those with 3 stories are farther away from buildings on the neighboring properties. The width of the development's road was increased from 24 to 28 feet, and roof locations suitable for solar panels were identified. A survey of the Meeting House Road property was only recently completed, and test borings and environmental reports are being finalized. Penrose plans to apply for low-income housing tax credits from the state for the February round of awards. But because the comprehensive permits may not have been approved yet, the time frame is a placeholder so that the projects could be considered in the fall if a mini round is held for the credits. Mini rounds are not guaranteed but have happened consistently over the past several years, according to McPherson. The project may not end up being considered for the tax credits until the February 2026 round. Once permits and other requirements are in place, construction is expected to take about 16 months to complete. Both projects will be built concurrently to take advantage of economies of scale, and a final completion date projected at June 2028. Marketing and a lottery to choose tenants will take place during construction, and occupancy will likely be phased, Sacchetti said. The town will work with Penrose to seek 70% local preference from the state, which he said was awarded in a recent Penrose project in Orleans. There's a high likelihood that the state would approve that level of local preference for the Chatham project, he said. Community Housing Partnership Chair and Affordable Housing Trust Board member Carolyn McClellan said that the group will have a rigorous campaign to publicize the availability of the affordable housing so we get as many people in our community in the lottery as possible. The lottery will be run by Penrose Management Company. Full occupancy is expected by December of 2028. Select Board and Affordable Housing Trust Chair Michael Schell said the presentation was helpful. Do it as fast as you can, he said. Deal proposed to force town to upgrade road where 17 acres will be developed by Alan Pollock. Saying they feel like they're negotiating with a gun to their heads, town officials were presented with a proposal last week by a landowner who is willing to preserve 17 sensitive acres of open space provided the town officials repair and maintain a portion of Round Cove Road. If the town declines the offer, the landowner said she will sell to a developer who has pledged to put houses on the land. The board took no action on the proposal, but has not closed the door to further discussion of the deal. The land conservation proposal is the latest bizarre turn in a years-long legal battle between the town and the developer Robert Fratis Jr., who is seeking to have the unpaved road slightly widened and hardened with crushed asphalt and gravel. The town prevailed in a prolonged legal battle to avoid having to improve and maintain the road, which is owned by the county. On December 16th, Hawks Nest Road resident Elizabeth Dubuque told the select board that she has signed a purchase and sale agreement preserving 17 acres of her land abutting Hawk Nest State Park with the Harwich Conservation Trust and the Native Land Conservatory. Resident Richard Waystack said preserving the land would be preferable, but no one likes a gun to their head. He said he opposed the imposition of a deadline on the town and the tactic of having the select board intervene in a private land purchase deal. This is not the appropriate place to do that. To be honest with you, out of principle, I would vote it down. The select board was also divided on the matter. Board member Jeffrey Handler said it was a poor strategy to try and pressure the town, but he sees the value of protecting the land. I couldn't forgive myself if there were 5 to 7 homes down there, he said. Board member Donald Howell said the deal seeks to accomplish by contract that which did not happen through the court. If the towns agree to the deal, it could set a precedent for taking on the maintenance of other unimproved roads, he said. And without a clear delineation of road improvements being requested, the town shouldn't act upon the request. We're going to wind up in litigation, he said. But board member Michael McGaskill said the roads are an embarrassment and improvements could be made in such a way as to not encourage speeding or excessive traffic. It's all about saving the land, he said. I don't believe you're asking for much. I believe it benefits the entire town, McGaskill told the sellers. The town needs more time to consider the offer, but should not drag its feet discussing the matter. We absolutely owe it to the town to take this 17 acres. The meeting concluded with the board taking no action on the proposal, but with board members encouraging the sellers to provide more detailed plans for the requested road improvements. Today's obituaries. William Ridgway Plummer, age 89, passed away peacefully on December 16th at his home in Chatham, surrounded by his loved ones. He was born on March 8, 1935, in Waban, to William and Jane Plummer. He graduated from high school from Doomer Academy, and then went on to Harvard University, where he graduated in 1957 with a degree in government. He was a member of the Hasty Pudding Club and the Harvard Club of Boston. Bill worked as senior partner at Brewer and Lord Insurance Company from 1961 to 1996. He was respected in the industry and known for creating strong and lasting relationships with his clients. Bill raised his family in Wesley and summered in Chatham, where he eventually retired. He was a member of the Chatham Beach and Tennis Club, where he served as past president. He was also a member of Eastward Ho, Blueburn Country Club. Each of these venues afforded him the ability to enjoy his love for tennis, golf, and paddle tennis. In addition to being a great athlete, he loved his Dahlia Garden, played bridge, and was a loyal and passionate Boston sports fan. Bill was a generous, kind, and gentle man who was loved dearly by family and friends. He made the best of every situation and lived life with optimism until the very end. Everyone who knew him loved him. Bill was predeceased by his sister, his parents, and his son-in-law. He's survived by his wife and their 3 daughters, 7 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. Colin Stevenson, January 9, 1939 to February 15, 2024. It is with great sadness that we announce the passing of Colin McLay Stevenson, 85, devoted husband, father, and grandfather, on December 15, 2024. Born in Barnstable and raised in Chatham in the heart of Cape Cod, Colin was the second of 3 children born to John Stevenson and Muriel Stevenson Jameson on January 9, 1939. By the way, if you've caught that, the headline did say that he passed away on February 15th. It was actually December. Colin is survived by his beloved wife Jane of 67 years, his 3 devoted children, their spouses. He was immensely proud and loving Buppa to his grandchildren, who were joys of his life. He's also survived by his sisters and brother-in-law and several nieces, nephews, and cousins. Colin was predeceased by his parents and sister-in-law and brother-in-law, and brother-in-law James of New Bern, North Carolina. Colin was a 1956 graduate of Chatham High School, where he excelled on the basketball team. He met Jane, a cheerleader, at a Boy Scout dance where the boys hailed from Chatham and the girls from Harwich, long-standing rivals. And that was the beginning of their love story. He served honorably as an aviation machinist mate in the U.S. Navy from 1956 to 1959. Following his discharge, Colin began a lifelong career as a skilled and creative general contractor, meticulous cabinet maker, and finish carpenter spanning 60 years. He took special pride in restoring antique homes across Cape Cod and the islands. In his free time, he carved handmade whales and fish from reclaimed wood and built custom furniture pieces cherished by his family, his friends, and clients. Colin, a man of unwavering integrity and honesty, was affectionately called the wagon master by his family and the boss by people who worked for besides him. A consummate leader in all areas of his life, he was a mentor, teacher, and trusted advisor to many. Colin's eternal optimism and thoughtful contributions made him a respected figure with his community, both on the Cape and in Sweden, Maine. He began his community service as a Boy Scout in Chatham and continued as a troop leader in Harwich for many years. He also served on several town committees. A dedicated family man and self-proclaimed fun seeker, Colin was a planner of adventures, experiences, and explorations for anyone willing and able to take them on with him. He passed his love of music to his children and grandchildren. A self-taught guitarist, he was king of the campfire songbook, keeping fires roaring while leading sing-alongs. An avid outdoorsman, Colin hiked many portions of the Appalachian Trail, including summiting Mount Washington several times. He was a sailor, boater, skier, fisherman, and loved exploring in the backwoods of Maine, either on foot with his hand-carved walking stick or his antique red tractor or his snowmobile. At low tide, he would often be found clamming and digging for littlenecks, then chucking and sharing his bounty hours later. He never left the house without a Swiss Army knife, and he could fix anything. Colin was a devoted patron of the art and never missed a theatrical music performance by professionals, his children or grandchildren. Despite challenges with reading as a child, he was a voracious reader, loved poetry, and memorized many of his favorites, including Casey at the Bat, The Shot Heard Round the World, Crossing the Bar by Tennyson, and Twas the Night Before Christmas. Every Christmas Eve, he recited the latter to his children and grandchildren, never once looking at the pages. Colin's legacy is one of craftsmanship, kindness, and unselfish generosity, creating something meaningful from every vision and unwavering love of his family. He had a big smile and a witty sense of humor. His memory will live in the homes he built or restored, the art he created, the songs he sang, and the hearts of all who knew him. No services are planned at this time. A celebration of life will be held in the spring for families and friends. Robert Louis Cartwright, our sweet, kind, brave, and joyful son and brother, left this world on December 18th. He was 28 years old, born on March 1st, 1996. He leaves his mom and older brother and many aunts and uncles, cousins, friends whose lives he touched deeply. Rob was fiercely loved. Rob was born on Cape Cod and raised in Chatham. After graduating from Nauset High School, he attended the University of Essex in the UK, his first year of college. Rob then graduated from DePaul University in Chicago with a degree in political science. He stayed in Chicago working in talent acquisition with Huron Consulting Group. He loved living by the lake, riding his bike along the water, and hanging out with his tight tribe of friends. He was an amazing young man, generous, thoughtful, loyal, and a good listener. Rob loved to learn. He had a curious and quick mind. He enjoyed a good debate and always stood up for what he believed to be right and true. Rob was diagnosed with a brain tumor at 15. He lived more than half his life in and out of hospitals, but he pushed on for 13 years. Not once, after multiple surgeries and many treatments, did he ever complain of anything other than a headache. He dealt with his illness with grace and humor. As his oncologist said, this horrific disease did not define his life. He never gave in, never gave up. He embraced life to the fullest always. Rob traveled quite a bit and had a bucket list of places he wanted to see all over the world. But a walk on the beach, seaside nature, and sunrises and sunsets of Cape Cod were his favorites. He grew up with his toes in the sand and salt in his hair, and was born laughing. We remember him in the way that made the lives of others so much brighter. Stony Brook Mill closed for the winter by Mackenzie Blue. With construction in full swing at Stony Brook Mill, the town has issued a temporary closure of the area, including the parking lot. The town purchased the site in 1940, but its origins date back to the 1600s. It was one of the first open space land purchases the town made. The current large-scale project started in 2020 when the retaining wall began showing signs of failure and a study identified less than optimal fishway conditions for the migrating herring, according to the project page on the town's website. The Cape Cod Conservation District completed the initial design work and funded the Fish Passage Comprehensive Review, which was done by a retired fish passage expert who previously worked for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. About 10 years ago, the town replaced the dam and extensively renovated the fish weirs to help herring navigate the elevation without exerting energy as they migrate to the lower mill pond. New work is focused on rebuilding the retaining wall and adjusting a few of the weirs that are too steep. The retaining wall, which separates the mill's elevated head race pond from the main brook, was reportedly beginning to crack due to freeze-thaw conditions. Over time, water was pushing through the stones, which needed to be filled and stabilized. Chris Miller, the town's natural resources director and project manager, said the existing stones will be used to fill the gaps and will be covered in concrete as much as possible in an effort to preserve the historic and popular location. A liner will also be added to the upper pool to keep water from draining through the wall. The site will be open in early April 2025, just in time for the herring run, a local indication of warmer weather on Cape Cod. Legal opinion blocks Baptist church demolition hearing by William Galvin. An opinion by the town's attorney cut short a hearing on the proposed demolition of the West Harwich Baptist Church last week. Davenport Realty Trust, the company that is redeveloping the church into housing, must submit plans for a new structure to the Select Board before going through the regulatory process to demolish the historic building, according to Select Board Vice Chair Jeffrey Handler. He said that according to Town Council's opinion, the request for proposals for purchase of the church required that if a new structure is planned for the property, plans must be submitted to the Select Board showing what the new structure would look like. What would be put back in place needs to come to us prior to going to the Historical Commission, Handler said. The public is very passionate about this project. The board needs to see what will replace the existing building, he said, adding that the facade has to be preserved. The Select Board will meet Monday, December 30th at 6 p.m. to discuss the renderings presented by Davenport, and said Handler. The board will not be discussing the demolition of the church structure, however, because that decision is not within the board's purview. That's a decision for the Historic District and Historical Commission, said Handler. The commission opened up a hearing on the demolition proposal December 18th, but continued it without discussion because of Town Council's opinion. Historic District and Historical Commission Chair Mary Maslowski announced at the beginning of the hearing that an opinion from Town Council indicated the hearing was prematurely before the Commission. Maslowski said that she had limited information on the nature of the opinion at that time, as she had just learned about it. Julie Vera, attorney and applicant for Davenport Realty Trust, agreed to a continuance, and the Commission set a date for a hearing on Wednesday, January 15th at 6 p.m. Handler said he was under the impression that Maslowski had asked for the opinion. Handler said he reached out to Town Council 2.5 weeks ago and did not receive an opinion until the afternoon of the HDHC meeting. Vera said he learned on December 20th of the Select Board's plan to review the project renderings, did not agree that that was necessary. He said there was such language in the request for proposals, but that the provision was not in the purchase and sale agreement. Because the rendering of a new structure was included in the purchase and sales agreement, which the Select Board had already signed, it could be argued that the board had already approved the plan, said Vera. He did not see any complications moving forward. Davenport would be ready to present the proposal for demolition to the Commission on the January 13th hearing, he said. The notice of intent filed with the HDHC detailed plans to demolish the entire structure, including the clock tower and steeple. The building is structurally unsound, unsafe, and a public safety hazard according to the application. When rebuilt, the apartment building will replicate the historic exterior features of the church, according to the application. Davenport is planning to build between 10 and 13 market rate rental units in the new structure, with unit sizes ranging from 600 to 800 square feet. The South Yarmouth developer committed to retain the architectural, historical, and cultural significance of the exterior of the church, which was built in the 1880s. Keeping up with committees, the Select Board considers changes to several town panels by Tim Wood. With more than 40 boards and committees in town ranging from advisory to regulatory, officials have their hands full keeping track of what each one is up to and whether mission statements are up to date. Circumstances change, which requires the Select Board to conduct an annual review both to catch up with committee activities and ensure that each is working to the best of its abilities and in the best interests of the town. The board hears committee reports throughout the year, but usually holds one session to tackle specific issues brought up during those reviews. These issues can involve membership missions or even whether a committee should continue to exist. On December 5th, the Select Board held a special working session during which it tweaked a few mission statements, decided to retain a couple of committees, and added to the responsibilities of another. Things began with the Golf Advisory Committee, which has several new members and has been discussing its charge, said Chair Bruce Bogardus. There was a lot of discussion at our committee meeting regarding what's our purpose, he said. The group's focus is in the town-owned Seaside Links Golf Course, overseeing the operations contractor and advocating for course improvements. The group proposed a new mission statement or charge that updated the original charge approved by the Select Board in 2010. The new charge streamlines the duties of the committee to focus on its management oversight and its responsibilities to recommend course improvements to the Select Board. Similarly, the Park and Recreation Commission voted to approve a new charge that clarified its duties and responsibilities. However, some sections conflicted with the town charter, specifically related to oversight of a town department, the Recreation and Beach divisions in this case, and town facility, the community center, responsibilities the charter grants to the town manager. They can't direct staff or hire staff and so forth, said town manager Jill Goldsmith. During discussions on December 5th, it was agreed to stress in the charge that the commission is advisory to the Select Board and its policies, including beach sticker prices, are subject to approval by the board. The fate of the Open Space Committee was on the table. With the sunset of Land Bank, the group has little to do. It met once last year. Natural Resources Director Greg Berman said. Select Board members suggested the group could be involved in monitoring some of the town's conservation properties that it helped acquire. But that is currently being done by the Conservation Commission and Conservation Agent Paul Whiteman. He said the Open Space Committee is not interested in taking on those duties. Whiteman added that the management plans for town conservation lands were inadvertently dropped from the town's website when it was redesigned, and efforts are being made to restore the documents. An update of the town's open space will get underway next year, Berman said, and the Open Space Committee will be involved. So they will be slightly busier than they have been in the last year. The Select Board opted to make no changes to the Open Space Committee or its charge. The board also agreed to leave in place the Aunt Lydia's Cove Committee, which makes recommendations regarding the commercial fish pier. After the group had been able to muster a quorum earlier this year, the board considered eliminating it. However, candidates have come forward and two new members were appointed to the board December 10th. Harbor Master Jason Holm said the group now has a good mix of veteran and young fishermen who are engaged and active in the industry. Select Board members Shireen Davis suggested that the Stage Harbor Trap Dock be added to the committee's charge, since that is becoming an important alternative to the Chatham Harbor Pier. Holm agreed to bring that up at the next committee's meeting. While there is no change made to its charge, the Economic Development Committee needs new members and a more refined charge. Select Board members agreed. The group hasn't met since 2022, and several vacancies. While this had made helpful recommendations in the past, its work needs to be better focused, said Select Board member Shireen Davis. We need to be giving them direction. We have a town with challenges, and we have a town that has sustainability issues. There's a lot of issues we need to be thinking about. There's so much talent in this town, added board member Jeff Dykins. I can't believe we can't craft a charge that is attractive for folks to join this committee. Board members agreed to put together a list of candidates for the committee, including representation from the Chamber of Commerce. They also plan to review the charges of economic development committees in other towns. The board decided that once the Cape Cod Commission's parking and traffic circulation study is finalized, the parking solution working group should be disbanded and the job of dealing with parking issues given to the traffic safety committee. The group now chiefly makes recommendations regarding traffic signs and no parking areas. The board agreed, however, that issues of parking in town landings should remain with the Waterways Advisory Committee. The board's discussion December 5th resulted in what would likely be the eventual combination of two committees. the Public Ceremonies Committees, and Independence Day Parade Committee. Currently, the Public Ceremonies Committee oversees Memorial Day and Veterans Day and is chiefly run by Robert Franz. He's kind of a one-man show, has been responsible for the event for many years, noted board member Corey Metters. Franz has indicated that eventually he will want to step away, and the Independence Day Parade Committee is most likely group to take on those ceremonies. The Parade Committee also has new members, so any transition would not take place immediately. In the past, the Public Ceremonies Committee organized both the parade and the Veterans and Memorial Day events, board member Dean Nicastro noted. Appeal questions historic status of Standish Road property, owners contesting demolition delay order from the Historical Commission by Ryan Bray. Uncertainty around the historic status of a property on Standish Road has prompted an appeal of the Historical Commission's decision to invoke a demolition delay on the property. The Select Board on December 11th heard an appeal from the owners of 21 and 23 Standish Road. In November, the Commission voted to impose a one-year demolition delay on 23 Standish Road. The appeal was continued on January 22nd. Continued to January 22nd. The Commission argues that the property qualifies as historically significant, thus triggering the town's demolition delay bylaw. But Sarah Turano Flores, the attorney representing the property owners, told the Select Board that it does not qualify. The legal grounds are basically very straightforward, she said. The structure does not qualify as significant building under the terms of the bylaw. The appeal is the first brought before the Select Board challenging the Commission's decision to invoke the bylaw, officials said December 11th. The Board is charged with either upholding or overturning the Commission's finding. Ultimately, I've never been in this position, so I want to make sure we stick exactly to the black and white, said Kevin Galligan of the Select Board. Tyrannis Flores said that the property owners are seeking to demolition the existing structures at 21 and 23 Standish Road and building new homes, one on each parcel. The owners went before the Conservation Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals for review and were approved. They also got approval from the Historical Commission to demolish 21 Standish Road, which is listed on the town survey of historic properties. But 23 Standish Road was not listed on the town survey, so the property was not subject to Historical Commission review in 2017, Turano Flores said. But family matters, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic, put a delay on the demolition and construction, she said. As a result, the owners had to go back before the three boards for approvals earlier this year. In a reversal of the Historical Commission's finding in 2017, the Commission identified the property at 23 Standish as historically significant, leading to the November vote to impose the demolition delay. The town recognizes any and all properties in town built on or before 1920 as being historic and subject to demolition delay. Turano Flores said that according to a deed on the property and the Massachusetts Historical Commission's description of the Nassau Heights neighborhood where the Standish Road properties are located, 23 Standish was not developed until the mid-1920s, most likely 1928. Another criteria for historic significance is the property's individual listing on the town's historic survey. Turano Flores said based on the lack of Historic Commission review in 2017, it can be assumed that 23 Standish is not locally listed. She added that the MHC also does not have an individual listing for that property. The owners are free to begin demolition and construction on 21 Standish, but uncertainty around the historic standing of 23 Standish is delaying the project further, Turano Flores said. Obviously, if this demolition delay is imposed, it's going to be a real financial hardship if we can't do the construction in tandem, as it's been designed and planned for many years. And in a similar story, 127 Old Harbor Road, demo or reno? Officials consider fate of buildings on town property by Tim Wood. Housing is in the future for the town-owned property at 127 Old Harbor Road. That was settled by a 2023 town meeting vote. Exactly what configuration the housing will take is still undecided and could depend on what happens to the buildings that sit on the property, whether they are renovated and repurposed or demolished to make way for new construction. The single-family house on the 41,000 square foot lot dates from around 1860 and contains 1,654 square feet, according to the assessor's records. A barn was built around 1950. The property was bequeathed to the town by Marion Nickerson Ellis in 1971 and was used as offices for the town's water department for about 30 years, but has been vacant for at least 15 years. The town staff did a walkthrough of the building in July 2023 and again on December 10th. The dwelling is in current state is uninhabitable and would need extensive work on the interior, exterior, and mechanical systems and safety components to repurpose the structure as a single-family dwelling once again. Building Commissioner Jay Briggs wrote in a memo to the town manager Jill Goldsmith, if repurposed and renovated, both structures would have to meet current building codes. The house is very old, Briggs said. The Select Board and Affordable Housing Trust members December 17th. While renovations would be quite an undertaking, he said, the house has some good parts as well. Briggs ran down the observations on the condition of the house for the two boards. The basement has minimal floor space and inadequate headroom to create finished space. The first floor has two means of egress, with 3 rooms on the left side of the center stairway and 1 on the right side. Horsehair plaster walls are covered in paneling, and the windows are low quality. The plastered ceiling is covered with tiles which may contain asbestos. The first level has no bathrooms. On the second floor are 1 large room and 2 bathrooms, and the other 2 rooms that were bedrooms at one time. One of the bedrooms has a cast iron tub. Carpeting covers the floor except in the bathrooms, which are tiled. There's also an unfinished attic. In a separate memo, Health Inspector Lucas Amato noted the property has 2 cesspools, which would have to be filled in. Under the town's current nitrogen loading regulations, the property could support 3 bedrooms with a traditional Title V septic system, or 4 bedrooms with a nitrogen-reducing system or sewer connection. Amato also noted that because of the date of the house, there could be lead paint present. No lead paint tests were done. Well, we're running out of time. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the holidays, and we'll be reading again next week.